Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. In this episode, I want to talk through a common challenge that I hear owners saying, especially as they're scaling from one to clinician. If you're a solopreneur, maybe you have one or two other clinicians and you're adding that second, third, fourth, fifth clinician, this is for you. And what I hear owners saying at that point is, my clinician schedules, they're not full. I'm busy and they're not. How do I solve that? When you get this right and when you go through and you know how to solve this with control, what it's going to allow you to do is scale with confidence. Right now, I'm going to guess that you're wearing too many hats within your practice. You don't have enough time. You're time starved. You're involved with things at the front desk, likely something with billing. You're overseeing, maybe authorizations or how your clinicians are coding. You're having to be responsible for all hiring, all staff training. You're overseeing way too many things. Maybe you're responsible for cleaning and ordering supplies and reconciling with the bank and a million other things that are going on in your practice. And you're also treating. You're working in your business quite a bit, and you want to be working on your business. You've likely heard that classic E-myth saying where I want to go from working in to working on the business. However, most of us don't have the training about how to build systems and how to handle this. We ourselves are busy. Our clinicians are not. What do we do? How do we, ultimately fulfill our role as the CEO or the owner of the business, where we should be focusing on those things that are most valuable use of our time, like building systems and better processes, looking at metrics, doing audits within our practice about how our different systems are working, and ultimately building and growing a team. The key is when you bring on a new clinician and they're not busy, you've made an investment in your practice. You're expecting a return. You need a return. If you're paying them $70, $80, $90,000, $100,000 a year, you're looking for more than a break even. You're looking for a margin of safety. My guess is that if you're, compensating a clinician $80,000 a year, that you're looking in decades ago was, triple that in terms of revenue. Maybe you're the same today, because you also have to pay the receptionist, you have to pay your billing person, you have to pay your marketing team, you have to pay your billing provider, you have to pay for the space, you have to provide the equipment, and you're looking for some sort of profitability or margin of safety in that. The other thing that I want to share quickly, I'm reminded of this story. We had a therapist who opened ultimately it was our third clinic, our de novo clinic in Dauphin, Pennsylvania. And the therapist's name was Dan Hendershitz. He was with us for 6 years, and he was an amazing physical therapist with us who had a full team, PTA, tech. And Dan, just had a ton of reactivated patients, ton of word of mouth referrals, producing excellent outcomes, very high graduation rate, and, was ready for that next challenge. And he opened up again our third clinic, and it was in about 1,200 square feet. And he went from 0 to, I think it was 100 visits in a week within 7 weeks. And he did this in a very rural area, not a high population. We did it with all cold traffic marketing. And the challenge is once he hit, that 107 in the 1,200 square feet, he was getting pretty tight on space. And there was an adjacent suite, and we could easily expand into that for 2,600 square feet. The idea is that we were going to have 4 full-time clinicians. And in retrospect, what he said, and this was at one of our breakthrough events, he said, 0 to 100 was a lot easier than 100 to, and here's why. For most of us, what we get tripped up on is when we bring on that new clinician, we're likely telling ourselves a story, especially if it's the first clinician that we ever bring on, that we're telling ourselves a story that we are the best therapists, that everybody wants to see us. And every time we hear that, it just reinforces this self-limiting belief. And we start to act in accordance to that. There's a little bit of, I'll call it ego, for lack of a better term, that gets in the way as we're bringing on that next clinician. And that can really be a barrier to helping them fill their schedule. I agree with Dan. I've seen this now hundreds of times, but 0 to 100 in terms of visits per week is a lot easier than 100 to 200 visits in a week, because 100 to 200 involves you bringing on a clinician, trusting them, and also knowing not only how to keep your own schedule full, but coaching them along to fill their schedule as well. First, and I reflect back 2 decades ago, first time I ever hired full-time PT, and I told myself that story. Everyone wants to see me. My name was on the building. I should interact with every patient to some way, and I was hiring a clinician to be able to free myself up. I think in the early days, my wife one time, I think added it up, it was like 73 hours a week I was available available to treat, which was not doable long term. And anyhow, wanted to get out of that, started hiring, brought on the full-time clinician. And then I remember walking back and he was sitting in the break room, not doing anything, just like looking out the window. And I was like, oh, I need to figure out how to solve this. We're paying somebody and then they're not busy at the time. And at that point, they weren't even covering their own expenses. And this was very early. He was a great clinician, long-term, had no trouble filling up a schedule, but we weren't covering the expenses in the beginning. And this was a, very dramatic, big expense for me to bring on another clinician. At that time, we had to rely nearly 100% on physician referrals. And I didn't know how to increase the amount of new patients that were coming through. And I really didn't understand ultimately in the end, which became the 5 new patient pathways. 20 years ago, I understood that there were 3 basic places that I could get new patients from. At the time, I thought it was my patient list, physician referrals, and cold traffic. I had no idea how to market to cold traffic, was not good at that yet, hadn't really learned how to do it. And now those, I called them the 3 publics at the time, that has evolved into the 5 new patient pathways. I'll give you those right now. The lowest hanging fruit is reactivations from your patient list. Next level up would be word of mouth referrals from your patients. Next one up would be number 3 is physician referrals. Number 4 is partner referrals. These are like large employers or organizations that are promoting you within your community. And number 5 is cold traffic. I've evolved to do that. And ultimately, what I learned to do was that anytime I was ramping personnel, that we were bringing on another clinician, whether it was our second full-time clinician and I'm number 1, or whether, and I'm our first, or whether it was our 100th clinician, whatever it is, anytime that we're hiring that next clinician, we not only we just ramped up personnel, we ramped up the team, we improved our team, we added another person. We also have to ramp up and scale our marketing. We also have to ramp up and scale our finance and ultimately our systems and operations as well. Anytime we ramp up, we hire a team member, we have to be able to ramp up marketing as well. How do we do that? Well, at that point, I just went through and, what's the easiest way to fill my schedule? It's patient reactivations. If everyone wants to see me, and that's the belief that I'm telling myself, which is somewhat self-sabotaging, fine, let's fill my schedule with reactivated patients right before we bring on that next clinician. We can do this with all of our experienced therapists, and we do that with promotion. We can do it via direct mail, which is what I was doing in 2006, or we can do it with email, or now we're finding text works even better. We can fill the experienced therapist schedules. The next thing that we want to do is any cold traffic that is coming in or anything else, we need to absolutely ramp that up. How can we ramp that up? Well, we can do more ad spend. We could go from running, 1 workshop a quarter to 1 a month. Or what we do in cases where we want to ramp up right before somebody joins is we run an extra workshop the month before they start. I want to think through that. So I'm seeing all the reactivations, and then the new person, the new clinician gets the overflow, primarily cold traffic marketing, physician referrals, word of mouth referrals, etc. It's not that I'm completely, and this is the other key as a CEO or owner or director, whatever your role might be, is it's also my responsibility to make sure they have the coaching and support to fill their schedule as well. If they're seeing a ton of evals and those potential patients aren't landing in a plan of care and graduating the plan of care, that's my role, is to help them improve there. But I'm going to make sure that my schedule's full first, and then everybody else we're going to bounce over to that new clinician, the overflow. And one of the biggest barriers that will come up when that is happening is the patient who comes in, they are a reactivation, my schedule's already full, and they have to wait 3 weeks to get on my schedule. And they don't want to see the new person. And now this just farther, self-justifies my self-limiting belief that everyone wants to see me. I'll go through a 3-step process in 1 second, how to do that, how to work your way through that. But first, I want to tell you how we ultimately handle that. You have to have a one-on-one conversation with the patient. And I'll just talk with a fictitious patient. Let's call her Stephanie. That's my wife's name. Stephanie, I know I've worked with you in the past. We have a lot of trust here. We just brought on Dr. Dan. He is absolutely amazing. I have worked with him myself. He has treated me. You're going to love him. You can see, get in to see him today. You're telling me that you're having a lot of issues and that your pain really spiked. I want to get you that help today. However, my schedule's full. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to see Dr. Dan today. He's going to go through a thorough assessment. He's going to treat you today. At the end of that treatment, I'm going to check in with you and see how you're doing. You can reach out to me, at any time, every time you're in the clinic. It's great, but I want to make sure that we're getting you the help that you need today. And I don't know how to do that other than you're going to see Dr. Dan right now. fair enough. And Stephanie said yes. I remember the first time that this happened, and it went really, really well. And it's, I remember this, I don't know, 15 years later, where I went through this and the patient was very adamant about seeing me. And I said, there is no, like, I'm booked and I don't know how to fit you in. Here's what we're going to do. And she was very upset, visibly shaken. And she saw the other therapist, and I checked in with her at the end, and she said, he is amazing. It was Dr. Joe, and Dr. Joe is amazing. I love it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. He's even better than you. Like, she was really socking it to me, and Dr. Joe is better than me. But she did that. And now, whenever she has a flare up or an exacerbation or anything like that, she trusts Dr. Joe and she'll come back to him. Very possible to do, but I never would have allowed myself, that opportunity if I got stuck on that self-limiting belief of everyone wants to see me. And rather than think my role is to help them fill their schedule. In the book Limitless, which is one of my new favorite books, Jim Quick shares a 3-step process to overcome limiting beliefs. Number 1 is just name what the limiting belief is. In this case, if you hear yourself saying this, in your internal conversation that you have going on in your head, it's just be aware that, yes, I'm guilty. If you're smiling right now as you're driving down the street and listening to this, yes, I say that everyone wants to see me. Okay, well, just be aware is step number 1. Step number 2 is look at the facts. Maybe you've heard this, that you've had 40 patients come in and you heard this 4 times. 10% of the time you're hearing somebody saying this, but it's very easy to say everyone is saying that. When in reality, it's 10%, maybe 15% of people might say this. And it's because you have no system, no process in place. You've done no staff training to help your team handle this very small speed bump and objection. Number 2 is look at the actual facts. We're doing that. How many people are actually saying this? Is it 100% of people? Likely not. And then number 3 is replace that with a new belief, and especially one that is going to help your new clinician get their schedule full. And, in my case, it was, okay, I hired this person. They have amazing manual therapy skills. They're amazingly competent, and they're even better than me. That was one of the things that I started saying. Sometimes, vast majority of the time, it was very true, but I wanted to replace that belief with something that was more positive. And then I started edifying our team repeatedly. I don't even have this is one of the things I would say. I only have a master's degree. I need 9 or whatever it is, 12 more credits to get my doctorate. Dr. Joe graduated at the top of his class. He's a doctor of PT. He's even better than me. He teaches manual therapy on a national level. He's in the research. You're going to love working with him. You don't have to throw in the self-deprecation as part of your, edifying that other clinician, but you can certainly do that. And I find here, at least in central Pennsylvania, that tends to work very well. And it's, that patient trusts me and I trust the clinician. And that is that's the belief that I'm replacing. I no longer say everyone wants to see me. In fact, they can't. I don't have a treatment schedule anymore. As you're going through that, and you're bringing on the clinician and you're busy and they're not, if you have that self-limiting belief, I highly recommend you work your way through it. Yeah. And just to recap here, what we went over, we talked about that challenge of my clinician schedule isn't full. You're super busy. You're time starved. You want to work on your business, not in it. You've invested in hiring more clinicians and growing your team, and you're looking for a margin of safety and ultimately a return. And that return could be a return in time that you can work on your business. You can build systems. You can continue to invest in, coach and support, build your team, look at metrics, run practice audits, things like that. And ultimately, your practice is in a safer space financially. Huge benefit when you do this the right way. I shared the story of hiring my first clinician and how I worked through that. And in particular, looking at the 5 new patient pathways and realizing all I had to do was fill my schedule with reactivations. Very easy to do with some promotion. Today, we do that with, again, text number 1, email number 2, direct mail number 3, and the new clinician gets all of the overflow. And we also talked about Jim Quick's 3-step process from Limitless, the book Limitless, about how he talks about overcoming a self-limiting belief. In this case, it was everyone wants to see me, which many of us as owners suffer from that affliction. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will catch you in the next one. All right, everybody, important announcement. Want to tell you that for the last 2 years, you've likely have heard of our program here at Breakthrough called Profitability Under Pressure. Profitability Under Pressure is for owners that are feeling the crunch of declining or decreased willingness to pay if you're cash-based or have cash-based services, and the increased cost to provide care. Your margins are shrinking and you're looking to solve that problem. What we've done is we have put together a 13-week masterclass that involves doing a profit leak audit, where you're taking a look at your revenue, what's going on. This is above and beyond a dashboard. Lance Gross with GTS Physical Therapy in Arkansas went through this and shared from stage at our Orlando boot camp event last year that this was worth over $1 million to his practice. You've heard me talk about Dave Bender, who was in the room, another practice owner who has a private practice in Maryland. He heard the story. He went back and did it. It was worth over $250,000 to his practice. And yeah, both amazing owners implemented this. That's just step number one. Step number two is walk through how to create a financial plan, which many owners have never done. They just are going week to week, month by month, quarter by quarter, year to year, reading their P&L from their CPA. And then we go through the 12 profit levers, which are 12 ways that private practices today are increasing their profit margin and overcoming decreasing reimbursements and increased costs to provide care and getting a better margin of safety and profit margin within their business. We've been teaching this again for 2 years. The special announcement is this. This is our last Profitability Under Pressure class. It is starting right now. We are going to keep this open through Friday, January 17th, and we are going to end enrollment, and ultimately we're going to end the master class as well. Now, why are we doing this? Well, here at Breakthrough for the last 12 years, our focus has been around marketing. And while it's great, and we have lots of owners that are getting amazing wins, like Lance and Dave and Jennifer and Varel and many other practice owners, Mike off the top of my head, have had awesome wins as they're going through improving their profitability, getting better processes and a system in place that is repeatable every 90 days. While that is awesome, we're straying a bit away from our wheelhouse, which is helping private practices do direct to consumer marketing. We're refocusing here. I am going to go through this one more time. This is your last chance. There is a link. You must apply. You must be a private practice owner. It's getbreakthrough.com/apply. You can go there now. There will be a link in the show notes, but you can go there now, apply. It'll take you about 2 minutes. You'll talk with a member of my team. They'll make sure that the masterclass is right for you, and then you'll be enrolled, and I will see you in there. Again, this is the last time we're running that Profitability Under Pressure class, and the deadline to apply is Friday, January 17th. And just in case you're listening to this at some point in the future, this is January 17th of 20. Thanks, everybody.